Welcome back to Screen Preach, episode 11. And we're going to talk about movies today in the name of the Godfather, the Son of Odin, and the Holy Jedi. You get the point. We're doing this 11 weeks now. 11 weeks. 11 weeks now. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do this. I feel like my face always gets half covered by it, but if I'm not close enough to it, it's not as good. The quality, the audio, I don't know. Trial and error. 1 week at a time. Yeah, last week was fun for me. I liked talking about Star Wars. I figure every 10 episodes or so, maybe do like a special. So maybe the next one will be Marvel or Tarantino or something like that. Yeah, so that was cool. And not like a crazy amount of people could figure out any of the quotes that I put up every week. It seems that is a problem. Even when the fucking episode is clearly a Star Wars episode, and I said it was a Star Wars quote, nobody. Do I have to do something as simple as I am your father? I mean, how easy you want me to make these fucking quotes? Come on. I mean, I don't know. Maybe everyone is just that fucking movie illiterate. Or I don't have... you know what? I don't have enough of an audience. That's really what it is. Because if I had enough of an audience, there would be people who would get these fucking quotes. People who really follow movies. I'm grateful to all the people that I know who support the show. But all the people that I know are the only people supporting the show. I need to figure something out soon. Because, as far as I'm concerned, this podcast is about more than just talking about movies. It's a way to market myself and potentially my work, my actual work that I do, which is writing movies. And I don't know, that's the key here. That's the usefulness of this podcast for me. So I got to figure that out. I also got to figure out a lot of other things, but we'll get there when we get there. One step at a time. Way over there. What's going on? What's everybody watching? Now that we're in month 2.5 quarantine, what have we gotten to? Because I feel at this point we've seen a bunch of stuff, but what have we gotten to at this point? I can't help it. I'm on a fucking Star Wars kick right now, and I have been since this fucking thing started. So aside from reading books, the Star Wars books, and watching the movies over again, I'm on the shows right now. So I mean, I'm almost done. I'm actually almost done with season 5 of the Clone Wars, and it gets better every season. And then I'll watch Rebels, and I'll rewatch The Mandalorian season 1. Because there's so much hype about the second season, and it just keeps getting better, as I'll talk about as we get into news this week. So I put a few things up on my Instagram already, but on Screen Preach, you can follow at Screen Preach. Follow it at Screen Preach, and then go ahead and follow it at Screen Preach. And when you're done following it at Screen Preach, just make sure that you follow at Screen Preach. And when you're done telling 500 people that you know to follow at Screen Preach, just remember that you too still need to follow at Screen Preach. Maybe saying it that many times will bring it into existence. Get that fucking following up a little more. I mentioned Yellowstone because that was like I had to put that up because that show is the one of the best dramas on TV, and it's underrated and almost it's overlooked. People don't even know about it. There's people who don't even. It's a contemporary like neo western, and it's just fucking fire. Not to mention who does the show. The guy who made this show, Taylor Sheridan, is a fantastic writer director. He's done movies like, I mean, he wrote Sicario. He didn't direct it, but he wrote Sicario. He did Hell or High Water. He did what was the other one that he did recently? It doesn't really matter because Sicario and Hell or High Water are good examples of what kind of writer he is, what kind of creator he is. And Yellowstone is his show, and he found the perfect network to do it too. Paramount's gonna let him do as many seasons as he wants at this point. I think he has something in mind, like 7 seasons or something, but it just gets better every season, Yellowstone. And the 3rd season premieres on June 21st, and I can't wait to watch it. Anyone who hasn't seen it, that's definitely one to check out. It's Paramount, and Paramount's a new channel. I think they took over for Spike TV or something. They did something, and it's very new, and there's not a lot of content, but the content that they have, the Yellowstone is proving to be their big hit. People don't know enough about it, and I recommend it. I don't know how you would necessarily watch it though. See, that's the problem. They're having, they're kind of not really on board with the times a little bit, because Paramount you need to subscribe to through cable, or maybe I guess you can stream it, but you still would have to pay for it monthly. So maybe they're not behind the times, but they're just I guess go get a Paramount subscription, I guess, but why get a subscription for one show? They need to figure something out, is what I'm saying. Because I don't even have cable because cable's stupid and you don't need it. But so I mean, I use my parents had cable, so that's how I used to watch it. I guess now I'll buy it weekly. It's only $2.99 a week to watch it. You could do it like that on Apple. That's how I usually do it with shows that I can't get. That's how I did it with Better Call Saul this year, because I don't have cable anymore, and I hope to never have cable again. Because Jesus Christ, Almighty God, Heavenly Father, pray for us sinners now and the hour of our death. Amen. So what else? I'll get to the big stuff that I really want to talk about, but let's see. That was kind of one of the big things. But yep, June 21st, season 3. Catch up and then check it out. Kevin Costner. I mean, come on. Dances with Wolves. Kevin Costner leading the show. It's fire. It's fantastic. Yeah. Falcon and the Winter Soldier can resume production in Prague. Some good news there. So everything's been on hold, but now Falcon and Winter Soldier will continue production. And Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, gave an update. Said they only have about 2 or 3 weeks left of filming. So we might actually get this on time when we wanted it. I still think they'll probably push it a little bit. It was supposed to come out end of August or early September. I don't remember exactly, but now we'll probably see it October, November, something like that. I just assume they will still have to push it. Yeah. So that's good. We're back on track. I was thinking about it too, and like we were supposed to have already seen Black Widow. But the break that we're getting right now is good, because this is how it's always been. You some big movie, event movie, and then you don't wait that long for more Marvel to continue. this is giving the sagas a break in between, like, because now when Black Widow comes out, it's the start of a new saga in the MCU. I think a longer break in between sagas is actually good. We kind of just let it go for a little while, maybe even forget a couple things. Not me, because I'm on top of everything, but regular audiences forget a little bit, and then all of a sudden a new saga's beginning, and there's been enough time passed. It's good for the story, you know. I think it reminds me of Star Wars and how we have so many years in between trilogies, and how that tends to help. Well, actually, no, I guess you could say it doesn't. That was my argument last week, is that it doesn't, right? Because every new generation bitches and moans about the new. Every previous generation bitches and moans about the new generation of Star Wars. So maybe it's, but this is different. So it's not that long of a break. I don't. Maybe Star Wars isn't gonna crumble and fail because they're not taking as long of a break. Anyway, aside from that, I also heard that Spike Lee. So Netflix is they're big. They're in the big leagues as the highest level you can go now. I mean, they did Scorsese, for crying out loud, and they're potentially doing Scorsese's next movie. But they also signed around the same time they signed Scorsese's The Irishman. They signed Spike Lee's next film called shit, Defy Blood. What the fuck's the name? Yeah, Defy Bloods, and it looks cool. It Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman's like the leading guy in it, and it will be on Netflix this June. They have announced the release date for June. Um, it's called Defy Bloods. It's like a war drama, I think. And Spike Lee's a fantastic filmmaker. And let's see, what was his last one? Was Black Klansman, which was fucking fantastic. So yeah, that's a new one for me to talk about too. That's June of this year. It's good to have the streaming because at least new stuff is coming. It's funny when you look at the top movies right now, the most popular movies, they're all streaming because there's no theaters. It's so like Extraction, which I will talk about next week. You know, I didn't for some reason it didn't occur to me to think about the original films that come out on these streaming services to talk about. I was only trying to find stuff on like Apple that was supposed to be in theaters, and then but God, I mean Netflix with Extraction. I'm going to talk about that next week, and I'll definitely talk about this film when it comes out in June. Capone was supposed to come out this week. I don't know what's going on with that. Like originally, that was the release, but I don't know if that was for theaters and now they have to push it. There's been no update. I'm that's one I gotta see. There was a little small movie that I really wanted to watch called True History of the Kelly Gang. Justin Kurzel's latest. Justin Kurzel was he directed that terrible fucking Assassin's Creed movie, but he did a Macbeth movie that was really good. He's okay. He's good. So I do want to. Fuck too. The kid from 1917, Schofield from 1917, I think plays the gangster Kelly there. It's a true story. I don't actually know the story that I know very little about it. So I wanted to see the movie for that reason too. But I heard that it actually doesn't. It's not fully true to what happened. So it's not the full true story. It looked like a cool little movie. I don't know where to. See, that's the thing. Apple has it, but only to rent, and I'd rather just buy it, which is fucking weird. Isn't that weird? Why spend more money when I can just rent it? Not to mention, you don't know if you're going to like it. But that's not why I buy. I collect the movies that are out there, and so it's more about that. So that's why I want to buy it. I was going to talk about that next week, and now it's going to be Extraction. Which is fine. because that was fun to watch, and I'll talk about it next week. Um, um, um. Uh, can you guys see her in the frame? She's sleeping. Hi. What's up? Yo. If she wants to stay there, that's cool. What else we got here? The big thing. Let's see. There's some stuff. So there's a rumor right now that Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen playing Anakin Skywalker, will appear in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. How do you plan on doing that? You can have him play Darth Vader, put him in the suit. That'd be cool. I'm sure he wouldn't even mind doing that. But other than that, the only thing I can think of is Anakin being in that show. It would have to be flashbacks. There's no other way to do it. I wouldn't put stock into rumors. I just wanted to call that out because there's a lot of fun developments ahead for us with Star Wars. And then I put this up. Tom Cruise is going to try to film the first ever movie in space with NASA and Elon Musk's SpaceX, and they're going to help him try to make a film in space. Very ambitious, Tom Cruise. Perhaps the biggest stunt you could ever pull off. But we'll see. There's no details on what the movie is or anything, but I mean, let's see how that goes. All of a sudden we get the headline. Tom Cruise passed away while filming space. You never know. You gotta be careful in space, dude. It's space. Fuck. And then this is cool. Dr. Sleep filmmaker Mike Flanagan. If you didn't see Dr. Sleep, that was pretty good for a Shining sequel. Book. I'm going to actually read the book at some point. So there was actually a book sequel to The Shining that Stephen King wrote. So this wasn't just a film that they said, let's make a sequel for The Shining. No, this is actually based on a book, too. Stephen King has been on point, this man. I mean, I'm almost through the Outsider book. I can't wait to watch the series. This is fucking, I mean, the links between his stories. I mean, spoilers, but it seems that he's playing the vampire card again. And if you know Stephen King, vampires, they come from his magical, mystical land of fucking in-world and end-world from the Dark Tower series. Everything can be traced back to the Dark Tower series. Everything he's written, I think, in some way, shape, or form. Even the It movies and books, that clown is fucking supernatural shit, probably comes from End-World's history in some way. But vampires were his full fucking... I mean, they're in the Dark Tower books, but they're the focus of Salem's Lot. So if I think that he's going in the direction, I don't know 100%, and anyone who's seen the show probably already knows, but I'm doing it this way with the book first. Could be a fucking vampire. Would not be new for him, is what I'm saying. Mike Flanagan did Dr. Sleep. It was good. Now he'll be doing Revival. Another one. Stephen King. And the big stuff this week, let's just get to it, okay? There's a new Twilight book being made. A sequel. An actual next installment in that fucking series. What does that mean for the movies? No idea. Do I think Robert Pattinson should play Edward Cullen again in his career? Probably not, because he's becoming a fan. I love having him now. Like, ever since I saw The Lighthouse, I think he has potential to be. I mean, fucking, he's gonna be in Christopher Nolan's Tenet, and he's gonna play fucking Batman. I think he's a good actor. I want to see more of his stuff. I don't think he should regress and go play Edward Cullen. Then again, go have a little fun and play Edward Cullen again if you want. Fans will love it. Do those movies suck? A little bit. Could they potentially make a good sequel? Probably not. But but go. I don't know what it means, but it's called Midnight Sun, and yeah. Hunger Games doing it, and then, actually Hunger Games is a prequel, but I don't have a problem with it if it doesn't devalue cinema. You know what I mean? Because there's all this crap blockbuster cinema, and then you have the pinnacle of it, which is, I'm sorry, Scorsese. I mean, I'm your biggest fan ever. You're my favorite filmmaker all time, but you're wrong to say that Marvel is not cinema. I don't even want to get into that whole debate, but. And I understand what he was going. If I was going to get into it, I understand what he meant, but I'm not going to get into it. I understand his argument because there is a lot of crap blockbuster cinema. Marvel is not in that category. They are quality, peak blockbuster cinema, and there's a bunch that just kind of devalue the point. The Twilight films were probably part of that. They didn't do a good job. The adaptation did not succeed. It can be. I'm cool with it because of the lore behind these story worlds. I like the story worlds, so I'm cool with seeing more of it. That's where I come from most of the time. It's just better when they're better. Make them better, and then it's better. I don't know. Is it as simple as that? Probably. I don't know. Whatever. Nicolas Cage to play Joe Exotic was probably the biggest news for most people who really love Tiger King. Nicolas Cage. They were talking about who's going to play Joe Exotic in a possible scripted series, Of course, Nicolas Cage is who they pick. That's so funny, man. Who's going to play Carol Baskins? Why is today when these other tenants start banging on their walls, putting shit up? Why today? Or are they banging on the wall to tell me to shut up? If that's the case, no, not gonna do it. But whatever. Taika Waititi, director of Thor Ragnarok and one of my favorite movies of 2019, Jojo Rabbit, is doing a Star Wars movie. Yes, he is. He is to co-write and direct a Star Wars movie. Once again, here I am telling you of more news about Star Wars that we have no details about. All of these castings and hirings of writers and directors making projects for Star Wars, and here's another one that just makes me hyped, and I have no idea what they're doing. All of these creators involved, and no idea what they're doing. There's a chance Kevin Feige, who's supposed to be producing one of these Star Wars films, will be producing this one. Maybe that's what, he's writing this movie with one of the 1917 writers. So that's cool. Taika Waititi, his vision is very unique. I can't wait to see what he does with Star Wars. He has already directed a Mandalorian episode. He also plays the voice of that bounty hunter droid in the first season. I don't remember his name at the moment. I don't remember his unit number at the moment, but that was him voicing. He voiced that character. He directed an episode in season 1. A lot of cool shit I didn't even realize. I knew that Taika Waititi played Korg, the voice of Korg, in Thor Ragnarok, but I didn't. So Jon Favreau is the creator of The Mandalorian, which I knew, but I didn't know he voiced a character in the Clone Wars. Pre Vizsla, the Mandalorian in the Clone Wars. I didn't. That's Jon Favreau voicing that character. Holy shit. Also, holy shit, where I am in the Clone Wars regarding Pre Vizsla. I won't go there. But, Taika Waititi doing a fucking... Also, the castings that they have posted lately of who's directing episodes of Season 2. We have Peyton Reed is one of them, director of the Ant-Man movies. And we have... shit. Who is the other one? There's some good directors for Season 2. Oh, man, I forgot. Why didn't I send myself that news to go off of? That was news, and I didn't fucking think... Shit. There's some good directors for Season 2. Speaking of Season 2, that's where we have to go now, to the big news. Assuming I didn't miss anything else. We talked about that. Yes. And we talked about that and that. The Mandalorian is casting Tamura Morrison, who played the clones and Jango Fett and the voice of Boba Fett in Star Wars movies, is coming back to play Boba Fett in Season 2, or maybe 3, though. I don't know, of The Mandalorian. I always figured there's a good chance Boba Fett is a villain for our new hero in The Mandalorian. Din Djarin, or however you say it. Din Djarin? Din Djarin. Din Djarin. Din Djarin. Din Djarin. Mando. After another season hearing the name, I'll know by heart. But I always thought there was a possibility. I'm also starting to think that Darth Maul could just show up. And I'm also thinking that... But then again, I don't know Darth Maul's story anymore. I used to know Darth Maul's story. For years I knew Darth Maul's story. And now Darth Maul is alive where I am. And so I don't fucking know his story anymore, his fate. But I did see Solo, so I know he's like, he ends up ruling the underworld and stuff. But fucking Boba Fett is back. And I always figured, there's no way that fucking guy would let that Zarlok eat him in Return of the Jedi. He had to have gotten out of there somehow. Blasted his way out of that fucking thing or something. He's gotta be alive, you know? He can't just be dead. You killing off Boba Fett that way, George Lucas? Can't be. He's gotta be alive. And now what better narrative to bring him back in than the Mandalorian? If the Fetts, Jango, Boba, not true Mandalorians, not of the religion. They're just defectors, just bounty hunters that wear Mandalorian armor and have the skills of Mandalorians, yes, but they're not true Mandalorians. So for him to be a villain or potential ally of Mando is something so fucking epic to explore. Not to mention, there's a good chance Boba Fett had a brief appearance in Season 1. In one episode, not Melinda May. She plays Melinda May. Who plays... Man, I'm just terrible today with names. There was a cool Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. crossover casting thing going on. The female bounty hunter in that episode, I'm sorry. She is approached by someone, and they don't show who it is. Remember? Feet walking up to her. She's passed out, feet walking up. That could have been Boba Fett. It could have been Boba Fett. But look, the point is... Boba Fett. Okay? That's the point. On top of Ahsoka Tano, hello? I just can't even begin to describe the hype. So, that's it. News is done. We're moving on. Today I'm going to talk about The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Small movie. Was happy to watch it. Ryan Johnson's the reason I watched it. I watched an interview with him and he recommended it, and I'll watch anything he recommends. Um, the main quote of this movie, there's a lot of quotable lines in this movie, but people aren't one thing is perhaps one of the most impactful lines in the film. Because it's true. But you'll see. Let's get into the movie. Um, Spoilers for anyone who didn't see the movie. The point of this story is to be as personal as possible. Okay, it's clearly a personal film for the filmmakers. It becomes more and more clear to me as I watched it that this was Jimmy Fails' work of his baby, probably from the heart, as personal as it gets. Jimmy Fails is a real person, and the character's name is Jimmy Fails. He performed and wrote a very personal story that made me root for him to get this house, and sad for him when he didn't. It's touching, heartbreaking, just at its core, drama film. Just great. It's sad and difficult to accept when you need to make a change in your life, and moving on is never easy. I think are the big key messages. Can't really narrow in one particular story that is being told here because there's a lot of thematic resonance, but maybe the idea of home and family is probably at the center of it. And understanding the things that form identity are about more than just home and family, about more than blood. Which Luke Skywalker would agree with you, as he told Rey. Some things are stronger than blood, and I like when an opening acts as a metaphor for the whole film. And here we have significant shots and shot sequences, which I'll get into, but when I talk about visuals that it really stood out to me, I'll talk about that. But the speech, the opening speech that we hear in the beginning, that comes back around to affect Jimmy's decision. So that opening speech literally applies to everything Jimmy does. Jimmy's approach to the house. Even though he's talking about the cleaning up of the water in that speech, the pastor guy, the speaker guy, it's more about the cleaning up of San Francisco as a whole, and how the minorities of San Francisco are either left behind, abandoned, or forgotten in some way. We were made to be put through hell is one of the lines of the speech. The only way to rise above this hell is to fight your way out. Jimmy fights for the house, fights for home, because it's a way of remembering an idea of family that made him feel loved and wanted. This idea of family gave him and his people history in San Fran, and he wasn't going to let anyone take it away from him. So overall, Jimmy's goal is about having a sense of home and family. It's not just about having some old house. It's what the house represents that he wants so bad. Jimmy craves that sense of family he can't seem to get from his actual family. His father is not much of a father, and his mother clearly abandoned him. San Francisco is his home and family. His true family is the streets, the other orphans, the other kids. The regular folk who inhabit it are his true family. And he feels like San Fran has been abandoned, or that it has abandoned him. So like he talks like his aunt. I mean, his aunt is his best blood family, right? But even the way he puts it, even she left. He felt like she abandoned San Fran as well. It's one of the more important lines in the movie. He talks about how his whole family left San Fran and their family history behind, and this hurts him. They abandon it, and they abandon him, is how he feels. He tells Montgomery, he says, "I'm the last one left." Hence the parallel, his grandfather being the first black man in San Francisco, Jimmy is the last, because he's the only one who hasn't left San Francisco behind. He loves it. It's home, and he's trying so hard to find a real sense of family in this place he calls home. Home is home, and there's no place like home. The hardest thing for Jimmy, of course, is that he has to realize he has to let San Fran go in order for him to move on with his life. It's never easy to do. I can relate to that in a way. I mean, Brewster, New York. It's just a small town in New York, but it's fucking. I'll always think of it as home. How can I not? It raised me. The people there raised me. It's never easy to leave home. And it's very tough for Jimmy to figure that out here. It's hard for him to let that go. Other significant lines in the film all further heighten the themes and ideas being presented. Like, there's no place like home is when he says that, or alone ain't got no home. Mike Epps was funny in this. Alone ain't got no home. Jimmy has to come to certain realizations. He needs to understand that home is wherever he is. Even if he has no physical home, he's not alone. He has people that affect him and that he affects. Mike Epps' character says, your dad needs you today more than ever. But Jimmy needed his dad his whole fucking life more than ever. The greatest line and the most impactful is when Jimmy's coming to his realizations. He hears two white girls complaining about San Francisco, saying they hate it. He says to them, you don't get to hate it unless you love it. What a great fucking line. It's perhaps true for anything. And like I said last week, so it was true for Star Wars too. For Jimmy, he's realizing he doesn't have to fight for San Francisco if San Francisco isn't going to fight for him. It's okay to stop loving it. It's okay to hate it because of what it's done to him. It has left him behind. He will always have a place for it in his heart, but he needs to move on with his life. Like I said, I always like to talk about structure, of course. So with this one, it's well done, beautifully done. There's no structural, it's put together magnificently. The reversal, in my opinion, is the death of Kofi, sparking an unraveling for the rest of Act 2. Furniture thrown out of the house is just all unraveling after that. You know, it just gets worse. Furniture thrown out of the house. Jimmy desperate and begging to find a way to buy the house. Montgomery learning the sad truth of the house and who built it. And the play, of course, confronting the truth in front of everyone. For Jimmy's sake is the Act 2 climax, that down and out moment. The climax is meant to be a decision, and that decision is Jimmy leaving. So the climax is his decision to leave. Performances. I have to point out the various almost abstract expressionism of certain moments, images and interactions between characters that heighten the fantastic performances, but also represent the obscure portrait of San Francisco that is being painted. There were a lot of fantastic shots, which I'll get into. Jimmy playing Jimmy was the standout performance, but I think the small roles are also key, like Danny Glover, Mike Epps, who bring the portrait that's being painted more into fruition. These personas that exist in this portrait of San Francisco really bring it more to life, and they did a fantastic job. I felt like I was falling in love with San Francisco watching the movie. And that was you want to touch the audience that way. So in terms of direction and visuals, I mean, it's fucking, I can't even begin to point out the amount of amazing shots that were in it. I'm sure I will leave some out too, but the ones that stood out most to me need to be mentioned. So that opening shot, like I said, is important for setting up a key idea in the film. So it's a little black girl looking up to a white man in a hazard suit, thus representing this idea of how black people in San Francisco are treated and looked upon by privileged whites. In terms of the personal story, how Jimmy is treated by privileged whites is the overall message of that moment. Trying to move into that neighborhood where that house is, he's constantly berated and looked down upon. Perhaps the worst person is the real estate agent. Other shots have similar meaning. There's the slow motion sequences of the beginning, catching the offbeat expression on white people's faces as they cruise by on the skateboard, or of the animated energy of black people who live there. I particularly loved the way we look up to Jimmy and his fellow people, like the corner group of friends that he has always talking shit, or the way we look up at Jimmy and Montgomery as they stare at the house from afar. Those angled up shots. It's to express their significance to San Francisco. That's what that shot, I think, that's what I took it to be. That they are just as important, if not more important, than anyone else in this city. The angle up that's used a number of times acts as a visual signifier for what Jimmy means to the people around him. There are two moments that are most impactful visually. One is the key moment when the camera looks up at Jimmy on the balcony of the house, as it pulls out while Jimmy speaks the truth of the house to the white people below. His truth, though, which is important. There's a difference. The only truth that matters to him. This was an early sign of the truth that we'll come to know, that his grandfather didn't build the house, as he debates this with a number of people. But it sets up Jimmy's entire perspective on the house. It's all a facade. That's what it is. It's a lie or a smokescreen that Jimmy embraces and believes because it feels better to. He embraces it so heavily that he has a way of being convincing, making other people believe it too. The white people below, in this scene in particular, do become mesmerized by Jimmy telling them his history of the house. And for a second, it looks like they believe it as much as he does. Another moment I loved was the sequence when Montgomery directs the corner boys. That was funny. The way it starts with classical music and slow motion, it's completely observational, but in like a unique way. It's highlighting the animation of persons and personal interactions. Pull back and cut to reveal that we are seeing things play out through Montgomery's perspective. He's observing them, and in his head, this is how he sees it. This is how he's seeing it animated, and it's how he probably sees a bunch of moments in his environment all the time, because he tries to see things from a creative perspective, from an energetic, animated, lifeful perspective, being a creator himself. And then I just have to mention the score of this movie. I saved it because I saved those fantastic film scores. This is one of them. The score, beautiful score for this movie. It was absolutely fantastic. It added every bit of sense, the sense of like loneliness that Jimmy and Montgomery feel at various times throughout the film, or struggle to. Or their struggle too. It heightens their loneliness and their struggle throughout the story. I just really thought it was a fantastic score. Even the good moments too, though. They're good moments. The score, right on. There's some happy and sad feelings that score invokes. But, I mean, I would definitely recommend this movie. My overall take on it is that it is about finding a sense of family and home, and there are many key moments that represent these themes. So, like the skateboarding, for example, is a good one, I think. It acts as a way for Jimmy to escape or run away from the truth, moving towards something that feels better to him, something loving and true in his heart. For him, it's okay that the facade is a facade, because it's what we believe that matters. You know, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's what we believe is true that matters most. It's it's more impactful to us when things have personal meaning, not, overall objective meaning, but subjective meaning. And for Jimmy, this facade is just more satisfying and more comforting than the actual truth. And I thought the skateboarding helped represent, like for instance, this idea of the skateboarding being a way for him to escape. It's one of the sources of his argument with his father, in their main scene together when he visits him, who clearly abandoned him time and time again, incapable of giving him that sense of love and home. The sequences that follow, so like that argument, so what follows the argument? So he has that argument with his father. He's like, man, I know you still skateboard. It's like the skateboarding had to be a source of the argument because skateboarding represents something. But this is further heightened by the scenes that follow, too. He skates quickly away down a hill, right? The song that plays while this is happening, too, is Don't You Want Somebody to Love? That, don't you want somebody to love? Because of course he does, right? That's what he's chasing. And then, Jimmy feels trampled on. He falls hard in that scene. He's skating and he falls real hard. That's him being forced to slightly face the truth. This emotion carries as well into the following scenes. The reveal of him living in a group home as a kid, which clarifies his abandonment from his parents, who were clearly around but didn't care enough. I don't know what, they just weren't fit parents. Then, of course, he truly embraces the truth at the end. So him breaking the skateboard is him accepting the truth, the hard truth. So that after the play and everything that happened, he has to accept the truth. And that moment of him breaking the skateboard is probably most significant of him accepting the truth. He can no longer use it to run away from the truth or escape. This house represents home. It's what this house also allows them to be, Jimmy and Montgomery, who they could be in the house. That's appealing to them as well. The lie, the smokescreen, is more appealing than the truth. It's more comforting. Part of their recognition is embracing who they could be without the house. Jimmy says people aren't one thing, right? And Jimmy is right. But that applies to him, too. He's more than just the Jimmy who lives in this house. He's more than what the house makes him. But it's just easier for him. Easier is comfortable. Hard is uncomfortable. I can speak from experience in that regard. It was just comfortable to stay home, but you're not going to achieve what you want to by remaining comfortable. You have to embrace uncomfortability. Beyond what the house lets him have, a sense of home and family, it's also part of the lie to believe that the house could somehow bring his actual family back together. So, for instance, he goes around telling everyone about the house and how he lives in it, hoping to convince them as much as himself of its significance. The most amazing moment that heightens this idea is when they are on the bus and he runs into his mother. It becomes clear she is no mother to him. He tells her about the house and how she should come by. But what we can tell, is that she won't be doing that anytime soon. But this idea for him is that he could somehow bring her back around to be something for him because of the house that he has. When they get off the bus, too, and into that cloud of smoke, that's a visual representation of the facade, the smoke screen, right? Of the lie. He allows himself to be consumed by the smoke in that moment and consumed by the smoke screen that the house represents throughout the full story. Fantastic visual representation. And, seriously. So, as I've said, his true family is the streets, the orphans, his friends, which is also why Kofi's death is the most impactful emotionally for Jimmy and many of the characters. It's why it's the reversal. Um, they attack Jimmy in that one scene too, verbally, because he uses the house to be higher or better than where he came from, but he needs to accept where he came from and accept that where you come from is not the sole thing that defines you either. The play is meant to act as the catharsis for Jimmy. It is saying that the streets shape you and can bring down your destruction, right? Um, it created Kofi and it brought his death. The play is meant to be a tribute to Kofi and a lesson to Jimmy. The house saved Jimmy in many ways. He even says this at one point in the film. But it came time for Jimmy to save Jimmy. The house could never make him a good person. He just is a good person. He needs to accept where he came from if he ever wants to truly move past it and move forward with his life. That's why the climax is a decision. Doing the hard thing never feels good, but in the end, it's going to be more rewarding. So Jimmy has to leave. It's time for him to move on with his life, and he's not going to actually... he could have stayed in San Francisco and just forgotten about the house, but he's not going to be able to move on unless he truly moves on from San Francisco. So he had to, the home he's now looking for is not behind him, but in front of him. He has to move on. He has to let San Francisco go. I also love that line where he's talking with his aunt, and she says, "It's not your loss, it's San Francisco's." That's more to the point of him having to realize that he is an important person, and it's not San Francisco that makes him that person. Fucking... So, the first time I watched this, I'll rate it for you, because it does hit you different ways. The first time I watched it, I thought it was just good, but, then I watched it a second time, and so it did what only some of the better films that are made can do. It made me feel very much feel every scene and moment. It got better for me as I watched it. That's how I know it'll age well, and because it resonates. It still resonates with me. I can think about moments in that film right now and how they relate, and that's why I have to give it an 8.6. It was a great film. Great little film. Alright, good, cool. So I definitely recommend watching it. Right now you can probably find it on Apple. It might be somewhere else though. It came out last year. 2019 film. It's probably somewhere streaming. I should have looked that up for you guys, but it's cool. Go look for it. This was a good episode. Let's do the movie quote of the week. I'm trying to make them easier for you people. I don't know what to do. Part of me is like, I put down the most obvious quote that, to me, it's like, oh, come on, everyone's going to know this, but I guess maybe I have to do that for you. I don't know. I'll start doing much easier ones for a little bit. I don't know. But this one might not be easy, but I don't know. Just remember that I'm doing the genre of the film so it's the same genre as Last Black Man. So it's a drama. This week's genre is drama. Here it is. And I'll give you a hint. Came out in 2012, this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. And the actress in this movie won Best Actress. The only way you can beat my crazy was by doing something crazy yourself. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry it took so long for me to catch up. I just got stuck. Pat. Come on. Come on. Name that movie. Name that movie. I'll put it up, obviously, always on Instagram and Twitter. I'm your host, Ben Morganti. You know the deal. Follow the show at Screen Preach, and then follow it again at Screen Preach, and then follow it. You can follow me personally at the Ben Morganti. Check out my website. That's where my real work is. That's where the written work is. I'm working on a new film right now. It'll be up there when it's done. That's where they go. They are previews. They're not the full scripts, but you can always contact me for the full script. Yeah, benmorgantistory.com. Also, if you want to really support this show, become a patron at Patreon. And nobody's doing that yet, but... And, I wonder how you say grew up without a mother in French Canadian. Can you tell me where that's from? Probably not. It's The Sopranos, by the way. Yeah. Find this where you find podcasts, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Morganti Studios. Also check out my brother's YouTube channel when he puts up a video, but not yet. I think it's called J&J Media or something. Okay, so cool. Yeah. Have a cinematic week.